Hey everyone, today is another mock building video where I will be building 3 LEGO Star Wars Clone Wars mocks on 3 different planets. It's going to be fun trying some new things with these mocks, so without further ado, let's get building. The first planet is Kashyyyk, which I haven't built yet, or if I have, it definitely has been a while. But I'm going with a beach, so I started with the ocean part, and I kind of did a bit of an elevation where the dark blue is kind of like the deeper ocean essentially, and I put that one stud lower, and then the rest of the ocean parts I did one stud higher, so it was kind of like a wave essentially. And then I placed some clear pieces for where the water meets the dark tan, and then that's where I started next for the wet sand section. I didn't want the wet sand section to be too big, so I did a decently sized chunk and I added a bit of elevation to it as well. So once that was done, it was time to work on the regular sand section, so I made sure to place all the plates that would equal out to the elevation height of the dark tan. Once I did that, I then started to add some more elevation to the sand area, kind of continuing that sand dune kind of look. I also mixed in some dark tan plates with the sand area to give it a more connective look, and some wet sand will transition, right? And then the last thing to do was just a small grass section in the back, which I added a little bit of elevation to that as well, as I just didn't want it to be flat. And I had went with this middle part in between the sand and grass, kind of like a more flat layer, but I decided to just go ahead and fill it out and make them equal in terms of the elevation. I thought it would give it a better look and make both sections more connected. Once that was done, I redid the elevation on the grass section, just pretty much using what parts I had left to add a little bit of elevation so it wasn't fully flat. Once that was done, it was time to add the plant life. I was going for more a tall plant look, like an inspiration from the Battlefront 2 map. I was using different types of plant pieces to add a lot more variety to that grass section, but mainly using those 3-stem and stacking them. Once the landscape of the planet was done, it was just time to add the minifigures, so I went with the regular Phase 2 clone troopers, and I added a spider droid along with some B1 battle droids. And here is the finished mock for Kashyyyk, where I have a separatist force coming from the ocean, just like in Revenge of the Sith. So starting with the ocean section, here on the bottom one studs is a closer look at the dark blue clear pieces for the kind of deeper ocean, even though, this isn't really that big of a section. And then there is a spider droid using the newer version from the 327th battle pack, which I do really love the new design. It does look a lot more accurate. And then I have a bunch of B1 battle droids, some already on land and some still within the water. And then I have 2 battle droids that were taken out by clone forces. And I added a bunch of clear studs, a mix of the light blue and the clear, just to add a lot more detail and some more elevation to the ocean. And then here's a closer look at that wet sand here, the first section, and I added a few more dark tan plates here, kind of deeper into the sand section, and a couple of 1x1 slopes as well for some detail. Now for the grass section, I put a few grass pieces here in the sand section to show a clearer and more detailed transition between the 2 sections. And then here are the regular Phase 2 clone troopers, and then there's one even here that was taken out by the droids, covered up by the tall plants. And they're all running to, repel the attack that the droids are doing. Overall, I'm really happy on how it came out. Kashyyyk is now one of those planets that I like to build. I really love the tropical look with the clear water and the, wet and regular sand with some grass. I do really like that look, and Kashyyyk, was the perfect planet to do this with. My main goal with this mock was really just to capture kind of the beach look and feel of Kashyyyk. I also like that I was able to incorporate the spider droid. I definitely want to incorporate more different droids and vehicles in future mocks, and this one fit, the battle that I was going with, and especially since it appeared in Revenge of the Sith. For the second planet, I chose Ord Mantell, and I used some inspiration when building this base and kind of the exterior or on the outside as well from the video game Star Wars: The Old Republic. The structure of the base, I started with some dark bluish gray slopes and then built the walls up connecting them, and I used some brick modified bricks to add a little bit of detail and to make the bricks different and a little bit of variation. The walls were done. I added some exterior detail on the walls like vents and some red plates for the Republic colors. The exterior, I was kind of using that inspiration from the game where, the main Republic bases on Ord Mantell, the buildings, but then there was also a big road outside in the middle. So I was kind of going for that a little bit, not exactly 1-to-1, but that was the inspiration for it. And I added a lot of detail. I did something a little bit different that I really haven't done recently, but but I just added a lot more smaller plates to add just some more detail to the actual road feel, and I added some vents as well. Went back and looked at some pictures of Ord Mantell, like in terms of the landscape, and it looked a little bit like, not Geonosis per se, but like medium nougat and dark orange plates a little bit, but I did a majority medium nougat, and I didn't want to do the entire like bottom section. I wanted to do essentially 2 sections in the corner. Once the small landscape was done, I was starting to do the interior, so I just tiled it off, placed a couple of plates where I could fit some, control panels and weapon racks. When it was time to build the roof, I wasn't going for anything too detailed or out there, kind of just the basis, so I added some 2 dish pieces on each side for detail, and then I was going to add 2 turrets, 1 on each side, so that the base had some defenses. With the roof done, the last thing to do was just add everything in the interior, including the minifigures. I went with just the regular Phase 2 clone troopers. Ord Mantell is a very cool planet. It's cool to build it using the inspiration from Star Wars: The Old Republic. I remember playing on that planet a lot in that game. So here's a closer look at what the road or exterior of the base looks like. On each corner are the 2 sections of the landscape. I kind of made them a little bit bigger, moving inwards, and here's kind of the path that breaks out from it. And I just put in a little bit of dark orange, but I mainly did medium nougat, but I made sure to kind of make them even a little bit in terms of the elevation and how much color there is as well. But I just really love the detail and, doing this kind of technique, I guess, or design in terms of, placing tiles down. I've mainly been doing the full tiles, kind of tiling off a section, but here I really went into the whole, 1x1s and 2x1s, really smaller plates and tiles to add a more complex and detailed look. And I definitely really like how it came out. And then on this section, you can see I just added some vents as some extra detail. Moving on up to the base, on each side are some barricades with some clone troopers behind, just guarding, and in case there's any droid attacks. I also just remember there being a lot of barricades on Ord Mantell in the game, and behind them are just a couple of crates with supplies for them to use. And then on the exterior of the base are just some extra detail, like red tiles for the Republic color, and then there's some vents on each side as well, and there's a control panel to open up the door. On the roof are the 2 turrets, which can spin 360 degrees, and I added some more vents here in the middle. It's just some detail. The roof is modular, so it's easy to come off. It's just attached by a couple of studs, and on this side are 2 weapon racks with a control panel to, log in what weapons you take for the day, and we have a clone trooper coming to arm up, and on the right side are a bunch of control panels and screens that this clone trooper is using to assess the state of the planet. And I always like using this technique where you use essentially the bottom of like the lever piece and you just place a clear piece on it for screens. Overall, I'm really happy on how it came out. It was fun building Ord Mantell, and I just am a bigger fan of using these smaller plates and tiles, essentially, technique or something to have a more detailed look on a surface. It does look very good, and definitely want to incorporate that more in future Mocs. It was also nice to get to use the medium nougat and dark orange plates for another planet other than Geonosis, which is what I've really been building recently with these specific parts. So it was nice to do a different planet and kind of just have it as some accent colors to the, overall main build with the road and the base. The last planet I chose is Alderaan, and I've done this planet before once with a clone base, and I was kind of going for the same thing here, but obviously on a smaller scale. And I took a lot of inspiration from the Old Republic, since in that game you can, go around these planets and really see the landscape and everything. I went with, essentially half the build will be like a mountain with a clone base connecting into it. Started with having 2 big mountain pieces that fit at least half the base, and then I just started adding a bunch of dark bluish gray slopes covering it and adding a lot more detail. Then I placed a big plate on the base for the roof, and I added another big mountain piece on there, so I wanted to continue the mountain in the base, like kind of connecting both, and I just added a lot more slopes, really trying to cover up as much as that big piece as possible to add a lot more detail. Once that was done, it was time to add all the snow accents on the mountain and a part of the roof as well. Same with the ground, because in the game there is a lot of snow around the mountains. It's not a snowy planet, but there is a lot of snow within the mountain areas. I definitely wanted to add a lot more snow here than I did in my previous Alderaan, and I also had gained a lot of pieces as well. So once that was just tiled off the roof, added some generators, and then added a small exterior section with some plates, and then it was just time to add all the plant pieces. I went with the 3-stemmed unstud leaf pieces, and I kind of added them in groups of like 3 throughout the entire build, and then I added some trees as well. I went with 2 trees, and these are vaguely what they look like in the game as well, and last was to add the minifigures. And here is Alderaan all finished. When building Alderaan, like I mentioned, I had done it once before for a bigger clone base, and since this was a smaller scale, I wanted to add a lot more detail, and I wanted to improve upon on some of the rock work and, you know, how much snow there was and where the snow was placed as well. And I definitely like how it came out, and I think it does look better than my previous Alderaan. And because it was a smaller scale, I was able to pack in a lot more. So starting with the grass section, on each side are 2 tall trees, which I've used this tree design before, and it's just simply using these 3-stem leaf pieces and stacking them on these brick modified bricks and just stacking them up. And then I placed a ton of these plant pieces because I didn't want the grass feeling too empty. We have 2 clones here walking out on patrol to go see if there's any separatist activity, with another 2 clones just standing guard of the clone base, and I selected the 501st for this one. On the top of the clone base is 1 big generator and 1 small generator. Down here are 2 crates for supplies, and then I added just some like bricks on the outside for some exterior detail because I didn't just want it to be like a flat wall. And there's a closer look at some of the brick modified bricks there on the wall. I had stacked dark bluish gray bricks up for the door. And then the main attraction of the build, and probably my favorite part, is the mountain. I made sure to add a lot of snow pieces, whether they were plates or slopes, or even this like cool piece right here that I really like how it shows kind of the snow like dripping down. I had some here at the bottom of the mountain as well as here on the top where the mountain connects with the base, and I even have some snow overlapping onto the actual roof. And something that I wanted to do with this mountain that I don't think I did with my previous Alderaan was I really wanted to cover up every remaining stud on the actual dark bluish gray plates and the big mountain bricks with snow, so it gave it some more detail and a better look overall, and I do really like how it came out. This was definitely a very fun one to build. I always like incorporating these types of trees, and it was just very fun building the mountain up and trying different, you know, rock formations, and then just adding all the snow on top of it. I had a really fun time building these 3 Mocs and definitely trying some new things and choosing new planets to do, like Ord Mantell and Kashyyyk. And Alderaan I've only done once, but still that's not a lot. I really love building Lego Star Wars Mocs because there's just so many different techniques and designs. There's really just limitless possibilities in terms of what you want to build. And I love building these sort of dioramas. I always want to try new things when building Lego Mocs and expand on stuff that I know as well. And I feel like I found a few things here that I definitely want to incorporate in future Mocs and improve upon, like using the, you know, smaller pieces here for a surface, incorporating new vehicles and droids, and really just working and improving upon my rock work. Like I said, I just had an absolute blast building these 3 Lego Star Wars Mocs, and I like how each one came out. Anyways, that was the video, so definitely lightsaber slash that like button and hit subscribe with post notifications on so you do not miss when I upload. I hope you all have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.